I used to think that grief came in silence, that it showed up with soft tears, quiet sobs, empty bedrooms, and the kind of cold that settles into your bones when someone you love is slipping away day by day. But as it turns out, grief sometimes shows up in rage, in paintbrushes, in color, in the raw defiance of someone saying, "You can't take this from her too." It started with a mural. Nothing fancy. No grand artistic masterpiece or political statement. Just a splash of color on the plain wooden fence in front of our modest home. A giant sunflower, clumsy but bold, its petals crooked, its stem too thick, its face smiling a little too wide. It was painted by my daughter, Lily. Lily was 10, born with more creativity in her fingertips than I'd had in a lifetime. Also born with something else, a rare form of pediatric cancer. One we fought tooth and nail for years, until the doctor quietly said, "We're focusing on comfort now." 3 words that changed everything. Lily didn't cry when we told her. She just asked if she could paint more. Anything she wanted, anywhere she wanted. We said yes. So she did. First a sunflower on the fence, then a trail of blue butterflies that fluttered across the side of our house, a rainbow over the garage, smiling cartoon frogs leaping across the garden stones. She even painted the mailbox to look like a bumblebee. Neighbors smiled. Cars slowed down to admire her work. People left little notes, stickers, chalk drawings of their own. It was more than art. It was medicine. Every brushstroke kept her smiling, kept her fighting, until one day, the fighting came from somewhere else. A white envelope in our mailbox. No stamp. Just slid in, crisp and cold. Homeowners Association violation notice. Subject: unauthorized exterior modifications. Infraction: decorative illustrations on visible structures. Penalty: $250 fine and a demand for immediate removal. Signed, of course, by Karen Whitmore, president of the HOA. Karen, the woman with perfect hedges. 3 lawn gnomes placed exactly 6 feet apart, and a smile that could sour milk. She lived 3 houses down, drove a white Lexus that never had a speck of dust on it, known for measuring grass blades and giving friendly reminders that your trash bins were 12 inches too far from the curb. She had never once spoken to Lily, but somehow Lily's sunflowers and frogs had personally offended her sense of symmetry. I read the notice twice, hoping it was a prank. It wasn't. The following morning, I saw her standing across the street, clipboard in hand, watching, scribbling. I walked over, clutching the letter. "Karen, you serious with this?" She blinked at me. "I'm simply enforcing the community code. Page 17, paragraph 4. No unapproved decorative painting on external structures." "Karen, my daughter painted those." "Yes, I know. And I'm sorry for your situation. I truly am." "Don't." She adjusted her sunglasses. "Look, I understand it's emotional, but we have to think about property values. People don't want to live next to a cartoon house." I looked back at my home. Bright, colorful, happy. And then I looked at hers. Gray. Window shutters that hadn't opened in weeks. A porch swing that had never swung. The only thing colorful was the fake flowers in her wreath. "You want me to paint over her murals?" I asked, voice shaking. "It's not personal." It was absolutely personal. That night, I told Lily what Karen had said. She looked down at her paint-stained fingers. "Do I have to stop?" And I lied. "No, baby, you don't." Because Karen may have had bylaws, but I had paint. The next morning, I helped Lily finish a giant mural of a tree. Her wish tree, she called it. Big pink blossoms, a tire swing, little initials carved in the bark. At the base of the tree, she painted a small version of herself standing with a balloon in one hand and a dog in the other. We didn't even have a dog, but Lily liked to dream. Karen saw it. From her porch, she called code enforcement. They came by 3 days later. 2 men in khakis, awkward and unsure. They walked around the property, took photos, scribbled on notepads, and then handed me a formal warning. If the art wasn't removed within 10 business days, I'd face escalating fines. I asked them, "You guys see a problem here?" They glanced at Lily, sitting quietly under the painted tree, clutching a thermos of warm juice. One of them mumbled, "I'm sorry, we're just doing our job." The next day, the story hit local Facebook groups, then Nextdoor, then the news. I hadn't planned on it, but someone snapped a photo, Lily in front of the mural, holding her paintbrush like a sword, her face thin, eyes glowing. The headline read, "Dying Girls Art Deemed Violation by HOA President." The internet did what the internet does. Exploded. Comments rolled in by the thousands. People offering to pay the fine. People begging to donate. People tagging news stations, lawyers, activists. Karen's name trended in our zip code. And still, she didn't back down. She doubled down, held a special HOA meeting, reiterated that rules must be followed, said exceptions lead to chaos. That night, my daughter asked, "Why does she hate me?" I didn't have the words. Because how do you explain to a dying child that some people look at beauty and only see problems? That some people confuse order with goodness? But I did know one thing. Karen had crossed a line, and if it was paint she hated, then paint she would get. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But in my case, it was served with a paint roller, a 5-gallon bucket of high-gloss sunshine yellow, and a pair of noise-canceling headphones. Let me back up a bit. The night after the news story aired, our house turned into a circus. Reporters were calling, neighbors were stopping by, strangers dropped off cards, cookies, even art supplies. But amid the chaos, Lily just wanted to paint. I remember her sitting at the base of the tree mural, tongue sticking out as she carefully added tiny birds to the branches. She was tired, slower than she used to be, but her hand never trembled when she painted. Not once. Across the street, Karen watched from behind her curtains. Occasionally, I saw the blinds twitch. She didn't come outside, didn't utter a word, but her presence sat heavy in the air like a storm cloud that didn't know how to rain. The fine notice came the next morning, $500 this time. A letter printed on thick paper with bold red ink, threats of escalating action, legal consequences, even liens. That's when I cracked. Not the way grief cracks you, quiet, shattering, inward. No, this was righteous, loud, precise. Karen wanted order? I give her chaos. Beautiful, vibrant chaos. It started with a midnight run to the hardware store. I bought 30 gallons of exterior paint, 10 different colors. Vivid, loud, joyful, sunflower yellow, electric blue, hot pink, mint green. The kind of colors that don't blend. They clash, crash, and party on the surface of any wall they touch. I also bought rollers, trays, extension poles, and, because I couldn't help myself, 3 cans of glow-in-the-dark top coat. And then I waited for Sunday. Sunday was the perfect day, because Karen went to her garden club meetings in the next town over. It gave me a 5-hour window. More than enough time. At 8 a.m., I began. It started with her fence. I painted sunflowers. Big, bold, obnoxious sunflowers. Then rainbows. Then cartoon frogs, just like Lily's. And in the middle of her gate, I painted a giant mural of a smiling girl holding a balloon that said, "Hope lives here." By 10 a.m., her front porch was bright pink. I painted the columns mint green, added blue swirls across the shutters, and left polka dots on the garage door. And I wasn't quiet about it either. Music blared from my portable speaker. Not rage music, joy music. Lily's playlist. Disney songs, Broadway tunes, whatever made her smile. I danced while I worked. Neighbors started gathering. No one stopped me. In fact, someone brought me lemonade. By the time Karen pulled into the driveway at 12:43 p.m., her jaw hit the pavement. Literally. She stepped out of her Lexus like she was seeing a UFO land on her tulip bed. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. I waved cheerfully. "Hey, Karen, just thought your house could use a little art therapy." She sputtered. What is this? What have you done?" "Exterior modifications," I said, dipping my brush into lime green. "Unapproved, of course. Thought I'd return the favor." "You can't do this. This is illegal." Page 17, paragraph 4. I recited, "No unapproved decorative painting on visible structures." Sound familiar? She ran up her porch steps, stepping in a puddle of purple paint, and yanked her front door open. I added a smiley face to her mailbox. The cops showed up 20 minutes later. 2 officers. Young. Confused. Karen stormed at them like a lawyer in a courtroom drama. I want him arrested. He vandalized my home. One of the officers turned to me. "Sir, is this true?" I didn't deny it. I simply said, "I responded to a fine with art. No damage. No graffiti. Just color." He looked at the house, then at me, then back at Karen. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "it's not technically illegal. It's definitely odd, but you'll need to pursue this as a civil issue, not criminal." Karen shrieked. "But look at it. It looks like a clown exploded." One of the neighbors called out, "It looks better than before." Laughter. The officer smirked. "Ma'am, I suggest you consult a lawyer." And with that, they left. Karen stood on her porch, fists clenched, surrounded by murals and glittery trim. Her face was so red, it nearly matched the apple I'd painted near her house number. I went back home and sat beside Lily on the porch. She was watching everything. Her tiny shoulders shook as she laughed. "You really painted her whole house?" she whispered. Only what I could reach. She beamed. "Can we do our driveway next?" That night, Karen didn't sleep. Her light stayed on until 3 a.m. I knew because I checked. By morning, the HOA had a crisis meeting. Without Karen. Turns out, the board had been quietly fed up for years. She bullied them into compliance, into silence, into enforcing rules no one even remembered agreeing to. But now she was the problem. Within 48 hours, a letter was circulated. Karen Whitmore was suspended from the HOA board pending investigation of harassment, abuse of authority, and behavior unbecoming of community leadership. She was removed entirely 2 weeks later. Her painted house? Still standing. Still bright. Still glorious. She tried to paint over it. Once. But the internet had fallen in love with it. It was tagged on Instagram, featured in a BuzzFeed listicle titled, "Top 10 Times Petty Was Perfect," and even got a muralist from the city to drive out and ask if he could add a dragon. Karen refused, of course. But the damage, if you could call it that, was done. She became a meme, a legend, a walking lesson in what happens when you mistake power for compassion. Meanwhile, Lily's art lived on. She kept painting. Even when her strength faded, she painted. Even when her legs couldn't carry her far, she painted. Our house became her canvas. Every wall, every stone, every step. It was hers. And no one, not Karen, not a clipboard, not a bylaw, was ever going to take that from her again. It's strange how quickly people adapt to change, especially when it's beautiful. A month ago, Lily's murals were a violation, a disruption to uniformity, something that had to be scrubbed away in the name of property value. Now our street looked like a children's storybook, and nobody wanted to turn the page. Karen's once gray and tan house stood like a monument to petty justice. Even after her removal from the HOA board, she refused to repaint it. Not because she suddenly appreciated Lily's art or had a change of heart. No, Karen kept it painted because she knew repainting it would admit defeat. And Karen wasn't wired to lose quietly. So she sat in her polka-dotted house, blinds drawn, curtains closed, peeking through the slats like a spy trapped in a kaleidoscope prison. Meanwhile, the neighborhood transformed. It started with the Jacksons 2 doors down. They painted their garage door bright turquoise and let their 7-year-old twins draw chalk unicorns up the walkway. Then the Stevensons finally rebelled against Karen's old ban on unapproved exterior lighting and strung multicolored fairy lights across their porch. And then came the mailboxes. One by one, the dull beige rectangles got makeovers. A shark head, a rainbow with clouds, a giraffe with googly eyes. Even Mr. Denton, the retired Marine who barely spoke to anyone, painted his mailbox to look like a tank, only with smiley faces on the wheels. It was like Lily had sparked something dormant in everyone. Permission to be joyful. and she felt it, even as her body grew weaker, even as the summer heat drained her faster than it should have, even when her hair began falling out again, and the nurses started coming more often than the mailman. She felt the joy. She'd sit on our porch in a shaded recliner wrapped in a quilt her grandmother made, sipping watered-down juice and sketching new ideas. Sometimes she'd hum to herself. Other times she'd just watch the neighbors go by and whisper, "It's working, Dad. Everything's working." And it was. But you know how stories like this go. Peace never lasts long, not when bitterness still simmers a few doors down. One day in mid-August, a white van pulled into Karen's driveway. Not a moving van, not a delivery, a pressure washing company. 3 men stepped out with hoses, ladders, and buckets of paint stripper. Karen stood on her porch in a wide-brimmed hat, pointing and shouting instructions with the energy of someone who thought the tide was turning in her favor again. Lily saw it first. She tugged my sleeve weakly and whispered, "She's erasing it." I stepped onto the lawn and stared across the street. One of the workers had already started hosing down the sunflowers. The bright yellow petals melted into a sickly brown as paint peeled away from Karen's fence. Another worker had scraped half the cartoon frog from the porch column, leaving a smear of green sludge. I walked across the street. No plan, just fury. Karen turned when she saw me. "Don't even start. It's my house. I can restore it however I want." "You had 2 months," I said, "and you waited until Lily got sick again." She scoffed. "It's not my responsibility to maintain a circus just because—" Finish that sentence. I warned. We stood there, inches apart, while her workers erased my daughter's joy stroke by stroke. Then I heard Lily's voice. Weak, small, but clear. "Leave it." Karen paused. We both turned to see Lily standing in the middle of the street, wrapped in her quilt, legs shaking, lips pale. "Leave it," she said again. "It's mine." Karen blinked. "You shouldn't be out here." "I wanted to see it," Lily whispered, "before you kill it." Karen's mouth opened, closed, then opened again, but no words came out. Lily wobbled. I rushed to her, scooping her into my arms. She was so light, too light. I carried her back across the street, set her down gently on the porch. Then I turned back to Karen. "This is how you want to be remembered?" I asked. "This is your legacy?" She didn't answer. The workers kept going. That night, I posted a photo of Lily's murals half-washed, half-erased. The caption read, "She painted life. Karen painted over it." The post went viral. Again. But this time, it didn't stop at the internet. Local news stations showed up. Then national. A popular morning show ran a segment on the neighborhood that chose joy. Reporters crowded our lawn. Influencers made TikToks. Art supply companies donated paint by the crate. And people began painting again. Not just our neighborhood. The whole town. Mural walls popped up behind bakeries, coffee shops, libraries. Kids were invited to Lily Days, where they could paint anything they wanted on pop-up boards and fences. And one afternoon, a package arrived with no return address. Inside, a golden plaque, etched in perfect script. Lily's Law. Let the colors live. Let the joy grow. Let the art speak for those who can't anymore. Attached was a draft petition to make it illegal for HOAs to remove children's artwork from homes without unanimous neighborhood consent. It passed. Our city council voted it through unanimously. Lily's Law was born. Karen tried to fight it, filed an appeal. It was denied. She tried to sell her house. No one would buy it. She tried to paint again. The city issued a stop work order citing historical preservation status after a group of artists registered her home as a landmark for protest art. Poetic, right? Meanwhile, Lily slept more, talked less, but she smiled. And one evening, as I tucked her in under the soft glow of her fairy light-covered ceiling, she looked up at me and whispered, "We won." And I nodded, tears thick in my throat. "Yes, baby, we did." But the war wasn't over yet, because Karen was planning something. I could feel it. The colors had taken over the neighborhood, but not her heart. Not yet. The week after Lily's Law passed, The neighborhood felt invincible. You could almost hear it in the air. This soft hum of triumph, a kind of invisible celebration with every freshly painted fence and chalk-dusted sidewalk. Kids drew dragons across driveways. Parents added murals of mountains and sunrises to their garage doors. Even the HOA website, now under new management, featured a banner that read, "Our community blooms in color." But not every garden blooms with joy. Some people plant weeds just to see beauty wither. Karen Whitmore, former HOA president, professional rule wielder and full-time Black Cloud, had gone quiet. Too quiet. Her house, once the epicenter of beige authoritarianism, now looked like an abandoned art school project. Half painted, half erased, like she tried to scrub the murals clean, but gave up when the neighborhood turned her into a joke. Still, her blinds remained drawn. Her security camera, newly installed, faced my house. And then one morning it happened. Another letter slid into our mailbox. No postage, no return address. But this time, it wasn't from Karen. It was from the city compliance department. It read, "Complaint received regarding excessive use of unauthorized exterior lighting and artwork contributing to visual pollution. Homeowner is requested to attend a hearing regarding potential violations of municipal codes. Failure to comply may result in fines or enforce corrective measures." At the bottom, in faint blue ink, was a complaint number, and next to it, the initials, KW. Karen. She had bypassed the HOA and gone straight to the city. But she hadn't just filed against me. She filed 7 complaints against me, the Jacksons, the Stevensons, Mr. Denton, and 3 other families. She accused us of unauthorized urban murals, excessive non-standard decor, unlicensed art installations, and my personal favorite, neighborhood destabilization via chromatic overstimulation. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Instead, I called the city. The woman on the line sounded exhausted. "Yes, we received multiple complaints from this individual," she sighed. "But your case is the only one marked urgent." "Why?" "Because she sent over a medical document stating your daughter is terminal and accused you of emotional manipulation via public sympathy." The line went silent. I had no words. Karen had weaponized Lily's illness, turned her into a tool to gain legal traction. She wasn't just trying to erase our joy. She wanted to punish us for sharing it. That evening, I didn't eat dinner. I sat on the porch, holding the complaint letter in one hand, and watching Lily sleep through the living room window. She looked smaller than usual. The paint-stained quilt barely rose and fell. Her murals were still there, sunflowers, butterflies, galaxies of stars. But somehow, the thread hanging over them made everything look fragile. I wanted to scream. Instead, I planned. The hearing was set for the following Thursday, 5 days away, and I made every one of them count. The next morning, I printed every news article, every petition signature, every social media post showing Lily's art. I gathered medical notes from Lily's doctor, statements from neighbors, and a written testimony from our city council member who helped pass Lily's law. Then I did something bold. I invited the press. All of them, local, national, even bloggers and art activists. I sent a mass email with the subject line, "City threatens child memorial art after HOA retaliation." By Tuesday, my phone didn't stop buzzing. The city called. "Mr. Ainsley, we're a bit overwhelmed." "Good," I said. "Bring extra chairs." The day of the hearing felt like walking into court for a trial I didn't agree to. The meeting hall was packed. Every seat filled. Cameras lined the back wall. Microphones on tripods. Neighbors holding signs that read, "Let Lily paint, and color is not a crime." Karen sat in the front row, dressed in gray. Of course. She held a stack of printed screenshots, HOA guidelines, and a folder labeled Evidence. Her smirk was back. The city officials, 3 of them, seated behind a folding table, looked overwhelmed before they even started. The lead official adjusted her glasses and addressed the room. "We're here to review complaint 486, filed by Ms. Karen Whitmore, regarding violations of community appearance standards." The speech was procedural, dry, until she said Lily's name. I stood, and the room fell silent. My daughter's murals are not graffiti. I said, they're not visual pollution. They're love. They're the way she's choosing to leave a mark on a world that's letting her go too soon. Karen cut in. Objection. This is emotional posturing. The lead official blinked. This isn't a court. Karen gestured wildly. He's manipulating public sentiment. The entire neighborhood is painted like a kindergarten class. Murmurs from the crowd. One of the neighbors shouted, "Because your rules sucked." Laughter. I continued. Karen filed complaints after being removed from the HOA, after the city passed legislation protecting children's murals, after national coverage made her behavior infamous. I pulled out the letter she wrote me, the one where she threatened legal action and accused me of weaponizing art. She didn't act out of concern, I said. She acted out of spite. And then I said something I hadn't planned, something that came from the rawest part of me. My daughter doesn't have much time left. I don't say that for pity. I say it because when she's gone, these walls will be all that's left. Her brushstrokes, her dreams, her color. And I swear to you, if anyone tries to paint over that, you'll have to go through me, and every person in this room, and every single soul who has ever watched someone they love fade too soon. The room erupted in applause. Karen stood up, fuming. You can't let this stand. It's chaos. It's vandalism. One of the city officials leaned into the mic. Ms. Whitmore, your complaint is officially dismissed. Furthermore, we'll be issuing a cease and desist order against any future attempts to interfere with protected mural spaces. Karen froze. For the record, the official added, you're also being cited for multiple false reports. Gasps. Karen sat down. Hard. Her papers scattered. Her folder slipped. No one offered to help. The hearing ended 15 minutes later. We walked out into the sunlight like a victory parade, without confetti. Reporters crowded around, asking questions, snapping photos. I didn't speak. I just lifted Lily's drawing, her favorite one, and held it high, the one with the sunflower and the words, "Keep growing." Karen never showed her face in public again. Her house went on the market a week later. No one bought it. And us, we painted. More than ever. The complaint was gone. The legal threat silenced. The neighbors rallied. The cameras faded, and the headlines moved on. But Lily? Lily was still here. And fading. You could see it in her eyes first. That sparkle she carried, even on the hardest days. It dimmed, like someone slowly turning down the light. Her hands, one steady as they danced across walls and fences, trembled now when she held a brush. Her words, always soft but certain, were becoming whispers that sometimes trailed off into nothing at all. We had won every battle that mattered, except the one we were never going to win. The hospice nurse came more frequently now. She brought soft words, comforting nods, and a silence I'd come to dread. The kind of silence that wrapped itself around the house like a fog. The kind that clung to you, even when you tried to smile. But Lily? She didn't stop painting. Not even for a second. In fact, after the hearing, after Karen finally lost the last shred of control she had over us, Lily asked me something she hadn't asked in weeks. Can I paint the roof? At first, I laughed. I thought she was joking. But her face, pale and sunken, yet somehow still shining, was dead serious. Just the edges, she said. I wanted to look like the sky is dripping down. I didn't hesitate. I carried her up the ladder myself, one step at a time, wrapped in blankets, her small hands gripping my shoulders like she still weighed nothing at all. We sat on the edge of the roof with a paint bucket between us and the wind in our faces. She dipped the brush in and began. Drip, stroke, pause, blue streaks, descending from the roofline like melted sky, clouds swirling in between, little stars tucked into the corners. I just watched. Sometimes I held her hand to steady it. Other times, I just held her. By the time the sun began to set, the roof of our house looked like something out of a dream. Not a child's art anymore, but something more. Something eternal. Promise me you won't paint over it, she whispered. I swallowed hard. I promise. She leaned against me, her head on my chest. Good. That was the last time Lily painted. She slept most of the next week. Barely spoke. Barely opened her eyes. Her lungs rattled sometimes when she breathed, and the nurse's smile got thinner every time she checked her vitals. But the house, our house, never looked brighter. Neighbors came by daily. Some brought flowers. Others just stood in the yard and looked. People who never knew us before now walked our block, like it was a museum. Quiet, respectful, reverent. One man, a stranger from out of town, left a note under our doormat. I lost my daughter last year. I came here just to sit and feel something again. Thank you for this gift. I kept that note in my wallet. Then, on a Sunday morning just after sunrise, Lily took her last breath. No drama, no pain, just a quiet exhale, like the final stroke of a paintbrush finishing its masterpiece. She was gone. I held her for hours, even after the nurse covered her, even after the sun rose higher and the world began its usual noise. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stared at the wall across from her bed. It was her very first mural. A garden of tulips in every imaginable color. Some upright, some flopped over, some with faces, some just silhouettes. In the corner was one single flower, drawn larger than the rest, with a message in her handwriting. Don't be sad when I'm gone. Just keep painting. I broke then. Completely. Collapsed on the floor, like a building with no foundation left. It was 3 days before I left the house again. And when I did, something stopped me cold. It wasn't the quiet. It wasn't the absence of her voice or the stillness of the air. It was the sidewalk. All of it. Painted. Dozens of chalk drawings covered every inch. From our driveway to the end of the street. Rainbows. Stars. Butterflies. Cartoon frogs. Smiling suns. And sunflowers. So many sunflowers. Each one labeled with names. For Lily, Lily's light. We'll keep painting. It wasn't just neighbors. People from out of town had come. Families, schools, teachers, nurses, survivors. Someone had even installed a bench under the cherry tree in front of our yard. On it was a metal plaque. Lily's bench, sit, smile, remember. I sat, and for the first time since she passed, I smiled. Karen never came outside again. She stayed holed up in her house, curtains drawn. Rumor had it she tried to sell one last time. The agent took one look at the empress tree, still growing, the paint streaks siding in the mural she once tried to erase, and said, "No, thank you." Eventually, the house went dark, vacant. One morning, a moving truck showed up, boxes packed, furniture gone. Karen left. No goodbyes, no final letters, just gone. And her house? It stayed, untouched, faded, quiet, but still painted. Eventually, the city turned it into a community art center. Kids came to paint, to learn, to heal, and every wall, every surface told a story. Not Karen's story, Lily's. 1 year later, on what would have been her 12th birthday, the mayor came to our porch. He held a ribbon and a small gold key. "Mr. Ainsley," he said, "we'd like to dedicate this entire street as a living art district in Lily's name." The street sign was replaced that day. It now reads, Lily Lane, where color lives forever. And every week since, someone new has painted something on our block. And I haven't painted over a single one. Not now. Not ever. Because grief doesn't mean forgetting. Sometimes it means remembering in bright colors. There's a strange kind of quiet that follows the loss of a child. It's not silence. Not really. The world keeps making its noise. The neighbors still mow their lawns. The birds still chirp. The mailman still slams the litter box just a little too hard. But inside the quiet, there's a hum. The kind of hum that says, "She was here." And if you listen closely enough, you can still hear the rustle of her brush against the wall, the faint echo of her giggle when the yellow paint dripped on her toes, the whispered oops when she messed up a petal and turned it into a butterfly instead. Our home became a museum, but not the kind with velvet ropes and dusty plaques. This was living art. Every room told a story. The hallway leading to her bedroom had little paper stars glued to the ceiling. so she could walk under the galaxy. The bathroom mirror had a pink dolphin painted on the corner, leaping out of painted bubbles. Even the staircase banister had tiny doodles. Faces, hearts, spirals. Each one added when she was feeling well enough to hold a pen. I never painted over a single one. Instead, I began preserving them, not just in memory, but in form. I reached out to an artist friend of mine from college. We hadn't spoken in years, but he came the moment he heard, brought a team. They took high-resolution photographs of every wall, used a protective coating on all the exterior murals, even scanned the roofline and preserved the dripping sky, digitally for archival printing. "This is more than art," he said, stepping back to admire the garage door Lily had covered in constellations. "This is soul." Word spread, and people came, not in droves, not as tourists, but as pilgrims. A young woman from Nevada showed up one morning with a backpack and tearful eyes. "I read about Lily," she whispered. "My brother passed last year. I didn't know where else to go." She sat under the cherry tree for hours, didn't say a word, left a painted rock at the base of the trunk. The rock had 2 words, "Still growing." After that, people started leaving more. Painted stones, tiles, tiny canvases, each one signed, dated, and placed around our house like tributes at a shrine. It didn't take long before the walkway leading to our front door was no longer cement. It was a river of remembrance. Then came the letters, thousands of them, from parents, teachers, children, cancer survivors, artists, all telling us one thing. Lily reminded us how to live. The city, overwhelmed by the response, took things further. They declared our home a protected cultural site. That meant no one, no future homeowner, no city official, no zoning board could ever modify, repaint, or demolish it without approval from the city's historical commission. I was given the choice to refuse. I didn't, because this house wasn't mine anymore. It was Lily's, forever. But even monuments need caretakers. So I took the role seriously. Every Saturday, I hosted open paint hours. Anyone, child, adult, local, traveler, could come by, grab a brush, and add to the ever-expanding canvas that was our block. Some added flowers, some added stars, some wrote names, initials, dates. And slowly, Lily Lane grew brighter. By the time autumn rolled around, every house on the street had something painted on it. The Jacksons had a mural of a giant turtle with a tree on its back. The Vasquezes turned their garage door into a bookshelf, each book labeled with something their kids loved. Even Mr. Denton, the tough old Marine, painted a silhouette of his late wife and added the words, "I miss her laugh." It wasn't just art anymore. It was therapy. But not everyone approved. A few blocks away in a newer, stricter part of town, some residents began complaining. Too loud, too bright, too off-brand for the city's aesthetic. Sound familiar? One even tried to file a city-wide decor regulation proposal to prevent neighborhood expression creep. It failed, spectacularly, because by then the world was watching. And Lily had become more than just a little girl with a paintbrush. She was a symbol, a movement, a reason. In December, the city held a candlelight vigil in her honor. Over 2,000 people came. They stood shoulder to shoulder in the cold, each holding a small candle and wearing a button that said, "Keep painting." I didn't speak. I didn't need to, because the house spoke for me. Every window lit from within, every mural glowing softly in the streetlight, every brushstroke whispering, "She mattered." Then came the final tribute, one I never expected. It arrived in the form of a letter from the National Children's Art Foundation. They wanted to start a grant, an annual award for children battling terminal illnesses, so they could create their own murals wherever they lived. The foundation would pay for materials, labor, preservation, and documentation. They wanted to call it Lily's Colors. I cried reading it, not the silent tears of before, but deep, racking sobs. The kind that leave you gasping for air, but somehow feeling lighter when they're done. Because this wasn't just about grief anymore. It was about legacy, hope, a little girl who knew she was running out of time, but refused to let that stop her from filling the world with joy. And then one day, I found something I didn't know was there. A note tucked behind the bookshelf in her room, folded 3 times, labeled, "For Daddy if you're still sad." It read, "Hi, Daddy. I hope you're okay. If you're not, that's okay too. Just remember, sadness is part of love, and you love me really, really good. So it's okay to miss me. But don't forget to paint. Love, Lily. P.S. You're allowed to draw frogs too, even bad ones." I framed that note. It hangs in the front hallway, right beside the Tula mural. Every time I pass it, I smile, even on the hard days, especially on the hard days, because Lily wasn't just a girl with cancer. She was a warrior with a brush. And this house, this neighborhood, this movement, she built it, stroke by stroke, color by color, love by love. So yes, Karen once tried to erase her, once tried to make us invisible. But here's the thing about paint. It sticks, and so does joy, and love, and Lily, forever. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little color in their world. And if you thought this was wild, wait till you hear what happened when HOA Karen destroyed my husband's memorial bench. So I put one on her driveway. You won't believe what I did next.